Okay, let's continue on with the second half of this lecture over perception and sensation. We were talking about after images in the last part, and when you look at a color for a long time and then you look away, that color is removed, you look at something white, you'll see the complement of this. If you've ever had a flash bulb go off in your eyes, you kind of see the complement of the colors you were just looking at. For example, if you look at this flag here, stare at it very intently, like you're trying to memorize every part of it. Just blankly stare at it, stare at it, stare at it. And it's removed, you're supposed to see red, white, and blue. Now, does it always work? No, not always, but it's a pretty cool concept. Try it again. If you want to back this thing up and try it over again, give that a shot. Okay, color blindness is due to the absence or the malfunctions of the cones in your eyes. If you look, these are two simple colorblind tests. If you're colorblind, you can't see the numbers in either one of those circles. On the left, there's a 10. On the right, there's an 8. If there's not, chances are you're colorblind or partial color blindness. It is very common, but total color blindness is very rare. You very rarely see people that only see in black and white. And it is more common in males than it is in females. All right, hearing, another one of our senses. The sound travels through the airwaves caused by some type of air pressure resulting from vibrations. Anytime you touch something, it causes a vibration. That vibration results in a change in air pressure, and that's what you actually sense. Each vibration creates some type of sound wave, and each one has its own pitch and its own loudness. Pitch is how many times per second that occurs. Higher pitches occur more often, and lower pitches occur less often. So that distance in there is what varies there. The more cycles per second, the higher the sound. Voices have different pitches because of vocal cord tightness. Mine are looser than yours, so my voice is a little bit deeper. It still squeaks. You may have noticed that on some of these lectures, but that's because of vocal cord tightness. And the human ear can hear anywhere from 20 decibels up to 20 to 20,000 cycles per second. That's pretty high. Some animals have higher than this. A dog can hear it a much higher thing. That's why dog whistles, only they can hear it. You can't. Loudness, a different concept of sound. It's determined by the height or amplitude of the sound wave. So the distance from down there or the peaks to the valleys, either one of those would measure your loudness. The higher the amplitude, the louder the sound, and it's measured in decibels. An average lecture in class is probably about 60 to 70 decibels. If you have a teacher that's talking over the rest of the class, when you're whispering to your friend, it's about 10 decibels. The music in your car is probably 100, 120 decibels. A rock concert is probably about 150, and a jet flying over is about 180, 190. 0 decibels is the absolute threshold for hearing. If it goes below 0, you can't hear it. Now, the ear is made of 4 main parts. You have the outer, the middle, and the inner ear. The outer part of the ear, that little part you can see, is unique to every human. Every one of us has ears, obviously, and each one is like a fingerprint. You can actually take pictures, and they're all the same, and they keep growing. The next time you're in church, look at the ears on some of the old people there. They're massive. The middle ear contains 3 bones: hammer, anvil, and stirrup. I know, obviously, that is not exactly what you're wanting to hear. I mean, if you talk to Mr. Farquhar, some of those anatomy people, there's a lot bigger words, but we're just going to go hammer, anvil, and stirrup. Keep it simple. Deafness is pretty common. About 2 million Americans are deaf. Some of it comes from inherited. They're born that way. Others come from injury of some type. Maybe they've had something jammed in their ear, or maybe some type of pressure thing has caused them to blow their eardrums. Maybe disease, maybe old age. One type of these is conductive deafness. Occurs to damage in that middle ear. People don't hear because the sound is not loud enough. A hearing aid helps it because it is just an amplifier that makes the sound louder. Sensory neural deafness is a little bit more serious. It's caused by damage to the inner ear and maybe to the nerve. Most often the neurons in the cochlea are lost. And it could be damage, like I said, to the auditory nerve. Prolonged exposure to loud noises, anything like that, would cause auditory nerve damage. Okay, let's talk about smell. Um, Without smell, you're not able to taste as much as you do. Smell can help us recall past memories. It's an excellent memory recaller. I mean, we know what grandma's house smells like when as soon as you smell it, you're like, I remember that smell. Um, Receptor neurons in each nostril react when the molecules of a substance in the gas form actually hit it. They're located right there at the top of that nasal cavity. These receptors send it to the brain through what's called the olfactory nerve. Since our smell adapts really quickly, this could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, but it does adapt quickly. You walk into the guy's locker room down there, it stinks. But after a little while, you don't even smell it anymore. If you go to your friend's house, every house has got that a smell to it. After a few minutes, don't smell it anymore at all. It's a good thing. Could be a bad thing in that maybe we have a gas leak. You smell it for a few minutes, you get used to it, gas builds up, blows us all up. Taste. Taste is a little different. I said there's 4 basic taste qualities: sweetness, sourness, saltiness, and bitterness. And the cats don't have any ability to taste sweet, so cat food is always bitter. If you've ever tasted it, you'll know what I mean. Flavor is a little bit different because it involves odor, texture, temperature, as well as taste. Old people or people with a cold complain that food has no taste, but they've actually lost their ability to smell, and so they can't taste the same things. That's why when you go to one of those cafeterias where all the old people eat, the food is very bland. It has no extra flavor, I guess is what you would say. Now, pizza has 2 different tastes. Hot pizza, but the difference is that the flavor of that is different. You can smell warm pizza, the texture, the cheese stringing up, the temperature obviously is different. Tastes completely different when it's cold. You lose the odor, you lose the texture, you lose the temperature, so it tastes completely different. The sensory receptor neurons are located on the taste buds on the tongue, and they specialize and are located according to that specialization. So the ones that taste sweet are in the very tip. Right behind that are salty. In the sides is where you get sourness, and in the back is where you get bitterness. You could diagram that out. Skin senses. Touch is broken down into 3 different senses: pressure, temperature, and pain. And they are vital to our existence. People who cannot feel pain do not live long because they don't know when something's wrong. If your appendix ruptures and you can't feel any pain, you would die from that. Studies show that infants grow faster and old people live longer when they're touched. So if you want grandma to stay around for a while, make sure she's got a cat or a dog or something that she can pet and touch every day. Little babies grow a lot faster when they're held a lot. When kids are neglected and they spend most of their time lying in their crib, they do not grow very fast. Pressure is all done with the receptors underneath the base of the hairs, and they fire when you are touched. So there's hair on almost every part of our body, so we feel that pressure. Different parts of the body are more sensitive to pressure than others. If I stand up, I've got 200 pounds of pressure on the bottom of my feet. It doesn't feel bad, but if somebody puts 200 pounds of pressure on the back of my hand, it feels horrible. So different areas are sensitive to different amounts of pressure, and it does adapt really quickly. Like I said, you wrap your ankle, wrap your knee, put on that pair of pants that you should have got rid of last year that are a little bit too tight, and you totally get used to it in just a few minutes. Temperature senses are all relative. If you walk into a room and it's 100 degrees outside, the room is 70 degrees, it feels nice and cool. If it's 0 outside and you walk into that same temperature room, it feels warm. Never fails. Every spring, as soon as we have that one day that hits about 65 degrees, people are running around putting their, taking their jackets off and running around in short sleeve shirts. But on the fall side of it, we've got 100-degree weather out there, and all of a sudden we have that day that's 60. Everybody's putting on the jackets back on. It's the same temperature. It's just all relative. And the receptors are located for this just below the skin. That's how it tells us whether we need to sweat or whether we have goosebumps. There's different receptors that determine warmth and coldness. They're right next to each other, but there are different receptors for each one of those. And it also adapts really quickly. You jump into a cold pool. You do that little jump around thing where you hold your hands in real close. After a few seconds, you're totally adapted. Feels perfectly fine. Pain. Pain is a unique thing. It's very adaptive because you do whatever it takes to get it to stop. If you got a headache, you take aspirin. If somebody's pulling your hair, you punch them or get your hair out of there. If somebody's standing on your foot, you push them off. You do whatever it takes to stop it. You're adapting to that pain. Chemicals called prostaglandin help transmit this pain message to the brain. Aspirin and other painkillers slow down the production of this particular chemical. That's how it relieves the pain, because the pain messages aren't getting to the brain. Now, let's say you've been stung by a bee. Most people don't just stand there and stare at the bee. They smack it if they have to, if say they get stung in the arm, and then the next thing you do is you rub your arm. Well, why do we do that? Well, that is something called gate theory. You flood the brain with other messages so not all the pain messages get through. If you just stand there and stare at where it bit you, or stung you, excuse me, they don't bite, the pain messages are shooting straight to the brain. But as soon as you start to rub it, and as soon as you, your language might get a little descriptive at this point in the game, but you start to rub it, it warms things up, so you have temperature going to the brain. You've got pressure because you're pushing on it, so that's going to the brain, so the pain messages can't get through there. It's a one-way gate. Some amputees suffer from something called phantom limb pain. It's when you feel pain from a limb that's missing. Mr. Overstreet, that retired a couple years ago, he always used to say that his feet itched. His feet were gone way back when he was in high school, but he still felt that because those nerves are left raw there most of the time when somebody has something amputated. So they suffer from phantom limb pain. Now, you have body senses as well. The whole body sense is something called your vestibular sense. It tells you if you're upright without having to use your eyes. You know when you're leaning. Sensory receptors in your ears, it's supposed to be help you with this, not held you with this. But it tells you if you're speeding up, you're slowing down. Once you're at a constant speed, you can't sense it. It helps you keep your balance, tells you if you're upside down or not, lets you know if you're falling, tells you when you're changing speeds. Kinesthesis is a sense that informs you about the position and motions of your parts of your body. So vestibular is a whole body sense. Kinesthesis is parts of your body. The receptors are located in the joints and tendons and muscles. You know when you're eating, you know how to get that spoon to your mouth. You don't have to watch it go to your mouth every time because the senses can tell you that. If you close your eyes, put your head back, you can put your arms out to the side and then touch your nose. It's really easy to do. When people are inebriated or they're taking drugs or something like that, they can't do that. That sense is off. That's why those policemen do those stupid human tricks on the side of the road and make you do that because they know you're not going to point back to your nose. You know, if you to scratch your backside, you don't have to watch your hand go there. You know where it's at. That kinesthesis tells you exactly how to get to every part of your body without having to look at it. Okay, perception. We'll get started here and then we'll probably have to get another one here in a few minutes. But perception varies according to your own interpretation of the senses that we just talked about. There's 5 rules to this perceptual organization. One of these is closure. You perceive things to be complete or whole figure when there are gaps in what your senses tell you. That's why we can't see our blind spot if you hold your finger out there, because your brain knows that your finger's there. You force unclear patterns to fit what you know. For example, read this to yourself. Does it say a bird in the bush? No, it says a bird in the bush, because we force it to fit what makes sense. A bird in the bush makes no sense, but a bird in the bush does. Figure ground perception is one concept. What is the background, what is the foreground determines what we perceive. For example, if you look at, let's see, let me find a better picture for this. Look at that picture there. If the black is the background and the white is the foreground, it's a vase. If that's reversed and the white is the background, then it is 2 faces. That is figure ground perception. We will continue this on the next lecture.